The role of BESS in planning. The Sustainable Design Assessment in the Planning Process Framework, or the SDAP framework, was developed by Victorian councils to provide a streamlined and consistent methodology for requesting, receiving and assessing built environment sustainability outcomes through the planning process. The SDAP framework recognises the role of local governments as a statutory authority for planning matters, provides a framework for consideration of sustainable design elements of planning applications, offers a consistent method for identifying opportunities for improved environmental building performance, and ensures that sustainability is considered at the very early design phase. This is the best time to maximise opportunities for good orientation and other initiatives that create livable, comfortable, efficient buildings. The SDAP framework comprises policy objectives as articulated in local ESD planning policies and more broadly in the Victorian Planning Policy Framework, best practice standards, which outline the minimum expectations to meet the policy objectives. The best practice standards are articulated in the Sustainable Design Fact Sheets and BESS, and SDAP supporting documents and tools, including the SDAP Design Fact Sheets and BESS. The design strategies included in BESS directly relate to the best practice standards listed in the Sustainable Design Fact Sheets and are designed to deliver the local planning policy objectives. The Sustainable Design Fact Sheets and the BESS tool are listed as a reference in the local ESD planning policies. A list of all local ESD policies can be found on the CASB website, which is casb.org.au. Individual council ESD local planning policies can be found via the DELP website, Planning Schemes Online. The Sustainable Design Fact Sheets are published on individual council websites. The objectives and strategies listed in each council's local planning policy are largely consistent. Councils acknowledge that the scale of a project influences the level of information and the types of sustainability initiatives that can be incorporated. To address this, two assessment methodologies have been developed for different sized projects: a Sustainable Design Assessment, or an SDA, and a Sustainability Management Plan, or an SMP. Each council's local planning policy outlines these triggers for both residential and non-residential developments. The triggers vary between councils. Check with a relevant council or look at their planning scheme online if unsure. BESS can be used to prepare an SDA or an SMP. A BESS report satisfies the requirements for a sustainable design assessment. For larger projects requiring a sustainability management plan, the BESS report forms an appendix of a more detailed report. The final version of the SMP or SDA will be included in any endorsed planning permit documentation and referred to in the planning permit conditions. The questions and credits in BESS are adjusted to the type and scale of your development. This happens after you create and set up your project on the Project Details page. You don't need to do anything in BESS to select whether your development requires an SDA or an SMP. But you should check with the local planning scheme to determine whether an SDA or SMP is required. In addition to an endorsed sustainability management plan, Council may include a planning permit condition that requires a report be submitted prior to occupation that confirms all measures specified in the Sustainability Management Plan have been implemented. This may be referred to as an ESD Implementation Report, ESD Compliance Report, Post-Construction SMP, or similar. The person preparing this report will need to refer to the endorsed SMP, including the BESS report. Council planning enforcement officers also check compliance with planning permits. This is part of Council's role as the responsible authority to administer and enforce the planning scheme. Members of the public can request a planning enforcement investigation by Council if they think a planning breach has occurred.